Today's guest is Ron Gabrisko, who is the CRO at Databricks. And Ron has had an absolutely legendary run at Databricks, leading the company from less than $1 million ARR. And they are expecting to cross the $3 billion revenue run rate mark in the fourth quarter ending January 31st, 2025. And in December, Databricks announced they're raising a $20 billion round to fuel additional growth. And prior to Databricks, Ron was the SVP of sales at Axway Software, where he built and led the sales team, again, from very early stages to an IPO. So I'm extremely excited for this conversation. Hello and welcome to the Revenue Leadership Podcast by Topline. I'm your host, Kyle Norton, CRO at owner.com. And every Wednesday, we dive deep into the strategies and tactics being used to drive success by the best revenue leaders in the world. So join me as I sit down with revenue operators to discuss actionable frameworks that you can implement in your business today with no fluff, no sales pitches, and no platitudes.
This episode of the Revenue Leadership Podcast is brought to you by Superhuman. Superhuman is an AI-powered email app that helps sellers respond, collaborate, and close faster. With features like inbox triage, automatic reminders, and collaborative email drafts, reps can filter out distractions to focus on what they do best, selling. Get the email experience that keeps deals moving. Try Superhuman free for 1 month at superhuman.com/pavilion. And so, Ron, thanks for joining. I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, why don't you give people a little bit of your background that I missed? What do they need to know about you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm Stanford MBA, Stanford Masters in Engineering, so we're probably a little bit different than some revenue leaders. But been at Databricks 9+ years. Started less than $1 million in sales, grew it. I think publicly we're $2.5 billion plus, and it's been amazing. It's been super fun. Built the whole company with the founders, and amazing team, amazing journey. It's kind of my third successful VC-backed exit, and excited to talk to everybody about it.
Yeah, not many can say that. And Databricks is in sort of the tiniest fraction of companies that are growing, multi-billion-dollar ARR at 60% plus, I read. And so the first sort of warm-up question is, how has the company just overall continued to grow at such a rate when sort of the denominator tends to pull down growth rate pretty aggressively at that point? What's been the secret?
I mean, a big part is you have to reinvent yourself as a company and as a leader at every single stage, right? So what you did from 0 to 10 million, it's way different than 10 to 100, 100 to 1 billion to multi-billion plus. And so how you kind of go after each one of those stages and how you transform as a company and as a team is really important to maintain that growth rate.
Yeah. And on the product side, you guys I think you have 6+ different, like, pretty major products, and you've done some acquisitions, and the product seems to have also evolved in a pretty significant manner the last few years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at like I said, for each of those stages, you can kind of break into how do you need to reinvent yourself based on product, strategy, and team. So, we started with one product. We literally did manage Spark in the cloud, and now we're a full end-to-end data and AI platform, right? We developed many open source projects, many acquisitions, and it also helps for an amazing fast growth market. But you have to evolve the product, so multi-product strategies. You have to develop your go-to-market strategy at each stage. You have to develop your team differently at each stage. So,
yeah. And so that is our topic of the day is in particular talking about how the go-to-market team has needed to evolve through each of these chapters and really unpacking how you've evolved through those chapters as well, because you're almost a decade there now. That is the time span that most companies have 4, 6, 8 CROs. And so really getting an understanding of how you have kept up with the pace of the business to continue to be able to run a team of this scale. And so we're going to split it into sort of two topics. One is how have you reinvented the go-to-market organization from sub $1 million to over 2 billion, 2.5 billion? And then we'll really unpack sort of the leadership, personal stuff as well.
Sounds great.
So, in your opinion, what are the big chapters? Like, how do you think about from then until now? What were the major milestones and chapters, and then we can unpack how to evolve at each one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first chapter is how do you find product market fit, right?
Yeah.
You have a product, you're excited about it. I think in some ways that's the hardest chapter, actually. How do you go from like 0 to 10 million, 20 million? Kind of that range to find those early adopter customers. So that's definitely the first phase. And then, after you find product market fit, how do you expand, get to kind of the $100 million mark, which is another, I would say milestone that kind of separates a lot of the companies that'll be long-term successful. And then, I'd say third chapter is $1 billion and fourth chapter is kind of multi-billion dollars. So I would break it into kind of those 4 different chapters.
And so, in particular, the going from product market and go to market fit. So you've gotten to 10 or 20. Clearly, there's a revenue engine working there. What are the biggest differences between that stage and cracking to 100 million, for example? What are the things that companies need to nail there?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, your oldest customers are your early adopters. So a lot of them might be super tech forward, because I'm going to just talk about like tech companies, but a lot of them are super tech forward. Now you have to branch into, you know, perhaps enterprise segments. Some companies start in the enterprise. I think that's an advantage. But a lot of companies will start as early adopters. Now they're trying to get more mainstream. And when you go out sell to enterprises, they have different budget cycles. They buy in different ways. Why teams have enterprise sales teams versus call it emerging or startup sales teams. They're going to need more help, but they also have more money, right? So sales cycles are longer. They also have different requirements, right? They're going to have security requirements. So again, if you look at kind of how they buy, how the product needs to evolve, and then how your go-to-market team needs to, evolve. That's how you branch that 10, you say 100. We had a similar journey here. Maybe if we just,
Yeah, let's
elaborate
unpack
a
that.
little bit more. We started selling to all the Silicon Valley, super tech forward companies. They love to try new stuff. They love to build stuff, but we were doing 25, 30K deals and working really hard to do it. One of the first things I did, as we expanded that team, to learn more about the product fit, I hired the entire enterprise team. Really to go meet every single enterprise that was using our open source product and start to develop that pricing strategy, really, right? So a lot of companies are open source, freemium. A big part on how you make that journey. How do you develop your pricing strategy based on what you learned from your early adopter customers in kind of that mainstream enterprise market? So as an early revenue, you're a big part in how you develop that, monetization strategy.
And so, what did that look like for Databricks? So you had your initial enterprise reps. How did you figure out pricing to capture enough market share while also not pricing yourself out? It's always such a tricky balance.
Yeah, totally. And even more difficult, I think, as a cloud company where you publish all your prices on the web.
Yeah.
Versus full scale enterprise, where you kind of, price based on, their budget. First thing is like, listen, go talk to as many customers. I mean, that's what we did, right? We had one product. We kind of entered the market around really data science and machine learning. And, we had a great user base there. So go talk to them. What are the other things we can do to expand our product portfolio? What are the things you pay for, things that come up like security and redundancy, and, expand data engineering as a second product pretty quickly. But a lot of that information just came from talking to customers and seeing, what are they willing to pay for?
Hmm.
And then trying to test those, call it triggers versus what are your alternatives to the market, getting your competition and how else they could buy, as well as, what are they willing to pay? And again, you're kind of maximize and match that value to price ratio early in the market. So you're right. You want to price yourself out of the market, but you also want a model that's going to continue to, expand exponentially and grow.
And how much does the competitive benchmark play into that? Because obviously you guys are in a knife fight with some big players.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you look at the competition. I mean, we're an engineering run company, so our original, the original thinking, I would just say, in general, of like technical founders, if we have the best product, it's the lowest price, we get the whole market. But a lot of times, companies look at low price and they question quality, right? And so, we actually price a slight premium to the competition, which allowed us to then justify our value. And then that also allows your sales team to discount if they need to, right? To get to the right. Again, that positioning, I think, is slightly higher competition is smart because, it shows that you're different and allows your sales team to justify why you're different. Once you can convince the customer, you have the best stuff, then it's a lot easier to get to the right price point. So
That makes sense. And so as you became a more mature company, was pricing strategy primarily done internally, or do you turn to external pricing consultants, or do you have a value engineering team? Like how did the sophistication of pricing strategy change a lot as you graduated from 100 million to like a billion in revenue, for example?
totally, it's an entire kind of really strategic at the company, right? So early days, there's a lot of Ali and myself and Arslan and some of the other founders deciding how should we price package these things. We mostly did it internally. We used a couple of consultants, mostly around packaging if we wanted to like survey our customers to see, as your product goes more and more complex, more and more features, you want to make it easier to buy. So you want to put packages based on kind of set buyers, price points. But most of it was done internally. We have a pretty sophisticated team, that works on, all of the pricing strategies. How do we introduce new products? How do we price them to try to maximize, both revenue and adoption? So it gets really sophisticated as you get bigger, for sure.
And you guys have all the data and analytics to do probably that work in a much more thorough manner.
We're doing all kinds of data science and AI to say, if we price it this way, what's the adoption look like? If we do a preview pricing, what does the adoption look like? And we have literally like PhDs doing pricing and packaging strategy because it's super important. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool.
That's really
with a lot of PhDs here, for sure. So
I bet. Well, aren't the founders 7 PhDs?
yeah, exactly. So crazy Spark. I mean, that was a big part of my IT with Databricks story. Was Spark was everywhere, and you get company had open sourced it and had like literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of users. We just needed to be able to monetize, provide a product to those customers. But honestly, our founders have a PhD, some of the smartest people on the planet. And, a big part of my confidence was like they understood where the market was going, they had a vision. Again, when you look at those three pillars, product, strategy and team. Like they were amazing individuals, had an amazing product vision. And so if I could fill in some of the strategy and team things, I thought we could have some big.
Yeah, good bet. Smart bet.
Thanks.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so let's talk about how the team evolved. And so as you go from, let's call it like startup to scale up. So you're exiting that 10 or $20 million range and getting into like, this thing works, we can hit the gas. How does the organizational design change? What were some of the chapters of leadership that you had to go through? I'd love to hear more about team building.
Yeah, a great question. I mean, first off, when you go on to say like 10 or 20 to 100 million, like you want still gritty startup leaders, right? You need guys and gals that are going to be out in front of customers, uh, you know, getting their hands dirty selling, right? Not a scale motion yet. Uh, but you want people that have done that before. So it's great to see like folks that have some startup experience, but also, some experience. You're also going to have to think through, where are you on emerging versus enterprise? So as you build out your go-to-market strategy, those tend to be two kind of separate types of buying patterns.
Mm.
And then you're also going to want to just decide, what's your international expansion strategy, right? So here, we built out American. I brought in some pretty, experienced, hungry leaders. Uh, and then also built out EMEA and APJ with leadership. So that's kind of how we expanded, and I separated enterprise from like D&B and emerging. And then eventually as we started to scale with verticals and, it's even more kind of focused and segmented. But that scaling 10 to 100, you definitely want leaders that have seen that movie before, but also are have startup experience, because they're not big company. We're going to still be building everything, right? It's not, here's the playbook, go run and scale it, right? Which is a different segment than as you get kind of bigger. So,
Okay. And then from like 100 to, is the next chapter 100 to a billion or 100 to half a billion? Like when do you start changing the mix of individual from, it's not as startup person fit. It's more like you're trying to grab Microsoft, AWS, Salesforce people. Like when does that chapter happen?
yeah, I mean, again, it's probably 500 to a billion somewhere in there, right? It's where uh, basically you're going to see your leader. It's either a bigger job than they've ever had before, and they're going to be upgrading or replacing leadership to be able to keep up with that trajectory. And if they can't get the right kind of caliber of talent, and they've kind of hit the ceiling, right? You have to think through, do you replace them? Do you layer them to, help the business continue to grow? And so I would say that 100 to, kind of 500 billion to, or 500 million to a billion. And you got to break that out. Like Americans is going to get there faster than EMEA. EMEA is going to get there faster than APJ. We kind of have to think through that and how they're expanding their own leadership team as you kind of go through that scale. So,
Okay. So the next two layers under you, so your direct SLT and then their level of leaders, what's the mix of that between internal promotes, people that you've brought up over the years versus external hires today?
I mean, obviously, we hired everybody from scratch, but as you kind of continue to expand, and a big part of the early days was all about how to hire the best of the best, inspiring and scale. If you're growing 100%, year over year, you're doubling your team every single year. So you gotta, if you have the best leader, they bring in their own networks. That's a huge part of our early success. In general, Joe, I cut out, promotions to about 50-50, because we want Databricks to be a destination place. We want people to come here, build their careers here. I mean, you look at like a place like Microsoft, people work there 20 plus years,
30 years.
right? So that's what we want Databricks to be. So the only way you do that is have promotion paths for those people. But also, like, for those people as they grow, that's kind of the call it the farm system. You also have spots where you're like, this job's bigger than anybody have in the organization. I need to bring in somebody from the outside. And again, you're double the team. And when you're
Right.
growing 100% every year,
You're always going to need external
you have
to do
tons of
at that
spots,
pace.
right? Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So roughly like a 50-50 split is where you'd want to land.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that brings a good, healthy mix of, the people that got you there, know how you work, know the market, and new blood too, that has more energy and different ideas. And that mix culturally in the team, I think getting that right is the thing that keeps you growing super, super fast. So
That makes sense. And I was creeping around on the Databricks executive site, and there's just a ton of people that have been there 7, 8, 9, 10 years. CMO is 7 years, COO 8 years. You're almost 10. Still led by a co-founder, and so clearly there is an institutional knowledge that's important. And you guys have been able to grow talent at a pretty rare rate. Like any secrets to, because just the individual in the business 3 years ago, that was a much different size of business and scope. So how do you get somebody ready to run a business that might be like 3 times bigger than the biggest thing they've ever managed before? What from a leadership enablement?
yeah, totally. And listen, we brought in a lot of, I mean, again, the same thing. So a lot of the, kind of OGs. We also have a lot of folks that added to that, right? Like we have an amazing CFO, and, amazing product folks, and amazing HR people. We brought a lot of leadership too, that are kind of newer too. Again, that whole mix, I think is really important. So, but as you're kind of growing really fast for somebody who's growing up in the organization, it's not bad to bring in new people that would have more
Of course.
experience, or different experience, to help them continue to grow. Again, if you're growing at this kind of rate, it's still going to put up more and more opportunities. And so a lot of your bigger scale leaders, I did bring in from the outside to help us scale, because they've seen that motion, right? Especially when you start getting into multi-billions. Now we're recruiting from bigger companies that have seen that movie before, right? And so having that mix of people that got you there and the people that have seen kind of a bigger movie, and putting those together, I think is the secret sauce. So
Yeah, and then those external hires help get everybody to the next level because they can teach stuff that folks don't know. And so what have you done to enable your internal leaders to keep pace with that growth? Like what does the leadership training program look like? Are you guys sending people to external courses? Like how do you do it?
I mean, we do. I mean, just the number one thing you can invest in, right, is your people, right? And so we have what we call leadership training. It's kind of immersive by function where, you know, we'll have the founders talk to them about kind of the principles of the company, but also kind of what we expect from a leader in terms of culture, strategy, and setting the vision for the team, a lot of hiring, execution, and again, the company values. So we invest a lot in leader training as well as like high potential programs, right? We'll also take people, they're even out like first line managers, second line managers, and, put them, give them special slots in this leader training, because we want to invest in those people to get them to accelerate their career. And as we do that, they also help accelerate Databricks. So, it makes a lot of sense. But
And what's
you
the
have
most
to invest in
important?
your people. Like we're a software company, it's all people, So
Yeah. And so for you, when you're evaluating, say you've got like a great up and coming director and you're thinking about them for a bigger like EVP or VP scope, what are the things that you're most dialed in to making sure that they can do for you to assess their readiness for the next thing?
yeah, we usually have a bricks to leadership index. We're a lot on data and analytics. We actually pull a lot of this data from, survey results, or do 360 anonymous reviews every single year as part of culture surveys and things of that nature. Because again, I think people and culture are number one things in a successful company. But, we'll also look at like, I call 5 pillars: vision. How do they set a vision for their team? What's their strategy and how they're accomplished and aligned to the goals of the company? I look at their culture and the culture results and, attrition on regretting, not regretting. We'll look at, again, like how they're doing hiring, right? So are they raising the bar, bringing in great people, um, who are also, well respected? And then execution, right? I mean, we're in sales, so
Yeah.
it's the easiest thing to measure. But we kind of use that framework for leaders across the company, and that's how we assess kind of early talent and how we're doing in terms of helping them grow as leaders. So
Okay. Vision, strategy, culture, hiring, execution. Makes a ton of
there you
sense.
go. 5 pillars.
I like it. Um, and then on strategy, like, how do you unpack who is good at strategy? This is always such a tricky thing because, like, judgment is a little bit like taste in some ways. Like, measuring it is difficult. How do you get to the heart of that?
I mean, to me, I'm looking at, again, it's not dissimilar to how you develop the go-to-market strategy of companies through these different scales. Like, one, you have the, which we're all talking about, it, strategy. So how are they selling multiple products
Mm,
into their customer base for whatever segment they have? What's your partner distribution strategy, right? Like we spent a lot of time investing in our, we have an amazing relationship with Microsoft, great relationships with AWS, Google, a lot of that. So how are they doing their kind of partner distribution strategy? Um, those are two really big pillars. How are they doing their territory and how strategy? Like, how focused are we on strategic accounts versus names? All those kind of assessments. How do we do funding and investments? Like there's, a number of things you can look at to see, how have they developed that to try to maximize not just the short term too, the long term, value and success in the business. So,
right. Cool. Nice. Um, I want to flip and talk to reinventing yourself individually as a leader. Like I mentioned, you've been through a journey which is normally like 6 CROs, just getting swapped out every couple years at that rate of growth. How have you individually done it? Like, what's been the secret to keep up with the pace of the business and all of these different stages? Where have you gone to grow yourself?
yeah, no, great question. And first off, um, I used to be super humble. Everything that I've experienced, everything that Databricks has grown has been based on a team, right? Like one of my own cultural principles is teamwork makes the dream work, right? Selling is really a team sport. So that's been a big part of it, right? So I spent an incredible amount of time, not just with my sales leaders and the sales team, but with the founders early days and then with the exec team. And, we're constantly thinking about how do we get better? So we're not always celebrating. I mean, I love Databricks. Like I'm a Brickster for life, but like you also want to be able to look at, okay, how can we improve? What are the new market opportunities? All those kind of things, right? And so at each stage, you're having to figure out, okay, what's holding us back from the next stage, right? So from 0 to 10, it's a lot of just, let's get those early customers going, product market fit, how you develop the pricing strategy. But as you build out the team, now we're going to, start to shift into other, how do we develop the playbook? What kind of investments do we make? What's holding us back? And as an individual, um, a big part of it's like, how do I recruit? How do I hire? How do I inspire? How do I operate the business? Like each one of them requires, differences there. And I think great leaders, the number one thing against everything else is you got to hire other great leaders.
Mm,
And so you're going to feel it if you can't get the best of the best to kind of follow you and help you build your business. And so each step you're going to have to evolve. You'll see leaders, they'll hit like a ceiling and you'll need to reinvent again. your strategy, your vision, but a lot of your hiring. Like that's why I think, hiring the best of the best and continuing to grow and bring in good people is really important as you scale the business.
So let's use pricing as an example. You're trying to figure out how to like evolve the maturity of pricing, to in a scope that you haven't done before. Are you leaning on people in your network? Is it books? Do you have an exec coach? Like, where have you gone personally to like learn all these new things that there's no instruction manual for?
I mean, first of all, you go find the best people that do pricing, right? So we went and hired people from like Google and stuff like that, right? So like at some point, it goes beyond the founders, exec staff. I mean, our CEO is incredibly still involved in the product and pricing and strategy, but again, you have a whole team that kind of had developed that, right? But in that call it tweener stage, as we were scaling, a lot of that is like get in a room with the smartest people in the company that have access to customer data, have access to our usage data, and start to talk about, okay, how do we go to the next level of product strategy and that pricing strategy? And again, I just want input into that from,
Mm-hmm.
hey, here's what I see at customers. Here's what I think they would buy. Here's actually how they would buy it. Here's how the competition is going to respond. And so a lot of those things around strategy, I think, come into play as being the kind of voice of the market, voice of the customer as you kind of go into those conversations. So I don't really have books
No.
on pricing strategy, but like I said, I think there's a lot of good papers out there. I think, we tend to look at, uh, what's the propensity to spend, segment your customers, understand what's the propensity to spend, focus on the customers that have a higher propensity to spend, and build a pricing model that matches price to value. So
Mm-hmm.
find the underlying variables that determine value, build a pricing model that matches that. So it's all going to start with value, right? So
Yeah. And so if like a theme I'm sort of hearing is it feels like you've figured a lot of stuff out and grown as an individual based on the caliber of people at Databricks. Like it doesn't feel like you're looking externally that much. It feels like you just have so many smart people in a room that you're doing like an iron sharpening iron type of thing and figuring out a ton of stuff from first principles. Is that sort of like a
first
fair?
principles is like one of our biggest company principles, right? But when we do get this, we're like, hey, we could use some help in this. Like talking about pricing strategy, we're like, this is getting bigger. We have $1 billion business, and we're treating little things that mean tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's got to be a better way to do this. We're like, let's go. There has to be people that this is all they do. They've developed it for the hyperscalers or big companies. Go find the best and best, bring them on. Like the expansion of that team with that level of expertise, where early days it's always founder and the other execs. And now, you're like, hey, we need somebody to, fix this particular thing. Because again, it's one of the kind of blockers for our next stage of growth. Go hire the best of the best in the market that knows exactly how to do that thing and has done that
Yeah.
before. So, so we keep expanding that kind of, that team to be able
Yeah.
to.
You're making that room better and better. And it's all about sort of the internal collective intellect of Databricks versus, I think a lot of people need, because I interview folks and they talk about their exec coaches help them level up and this and that. But I think Databricks sounds unique in the fact that you just have a different caliber of talent internally that you don't even need to look externally nearly as much as some places.
Yeah. I think the other part, Joe, is like, I mean, we're also like doing stuff you do as stuff. We have email all like, hey, check out what this, product doing or this competitor. Has anybody thought about this? Right. So like
Mhm.
collective like thought leadership or innovation is from the whole organization. It's not just the central like brain trust or whatever. We're trying to get as much information as possible from systems, from all our people to make, the best decisions they moving forward. We personally, I have an exec coach. I love the
Oh,
guy
you
to
do?
death.
Okay,
Yeah, I do.
nice.
And the biggest thing I like about an exec coach is, you know, nobody that works for you is going to tell you exactly how they see it. So you can get
Yeah.
some really good raw 360 feedback on how people view you and how you can get better. I always say feedback's a gift, whether it's good or bad, it's a gift. And you can use that to help yourself grow. So,
Mm. How long have you been working with an exec coach?
I mean, I've done it on and off now for a few years just to again, early on, we invested a lot because I wanted to be able to grow and be a bigger leader. And as I've gotten bigger and bigger, I kind of use some of those same lessons, um, you know, and, uh,
Yeah.
but we also do like try to do some leadership things or have inspirational speakers at different events, things of that nature. And,
Cool.
like I said, it put me in a place where, you learn about yourself. It's a lot of self reflection on, what are my strengths? What are the things I need to work on? And then consciously wanting to work on those things as you grow. So,
Yeah. What's been the biggest personal unlock from working with an exec coach? What was your big epiphany from the last couple of years?
oh, wow. I don't know, probably like patience and listening. Like, it's a
Yeah.
highly passionate, high energy, smart guy. And just being patient, everybody kind of communicates or does things in a different way. And so, I really, just tried to learn, you know, listen and be patient. And I think that it helps you in all walks of life. But I'm still not patient about our revenue growth, but
No, no.
that's a separate
I
topic. So,
I laugh because I had a great exec coach a couple of years ago, and I always tell people like the big thing for me was learning to be a little less of a bull in a china shop, and patience was like the big thing, and understanding where other folks might be coming from. It's funny the wiring it's in us. Like if you want to be
exactly.
successful in this job, like impatience is sort of a prerequisite, but then
Exactly.
at some point that strength, which is definitely being a strength in my career, becomes a weakness, and I probably
You
adjusted
have to
on
have
that.
good balance, right? You have to know where to use these. I think every great leader has different superpowers. And, I have folks that are amazingly inspiring. I have other folks that are just off the charts smart, other people who, can get along with everyone. It's how you use different superpowers to try to, again, hire the best and inspire them, mentor them, coach them, motivate them to, be their best selves. So,
Yeah. And one of the things that I heard from a leader in your org was one of your superpowers is inspiring a growth mindset. Yeah, this guy's like a couple years into Databricks, and I was like, what were the big like ahas and unlocks? And his comment was around growth mindset. Like everybody has this expectation to get better. And how have you intentionally made that a part of your culture? Because I can hear it in you, and it sounds like it's like such a thing in the company. But what have you done to get people to live this growth mindset?
I mean, I think part of it's like, Databricks is a really special place. So, like, as you become successful, it becomes easier to attract people who, have great
Yeah.
ideas, share those ideas, share success, which has been a great part of our company and our flywheel. But we also start from first principles, right? So, like, even me, like, and I came in, every exec was like, hey, we're going to do it this way because it's how I've always done it. And at Databricks, like, no, wait, let's understand what we need to do and why we should do it. And maybe there's a better way to do it. So a lot of innovation, even like comp plan or our revenue model, all those things came from first principles. right? And so,
Yeah.
when you come in, it's not just, don't just bring your playbook you did before. We want people that have seen the movie and a great experience and a great network, but we're also going to try to innovate on each part of that business because, that's fun. And that's why you do this
Mm.
kind of stuff. Nobody's growing at this rate at a multi-billion-dollar company. So we get to innovate every part of the business, not just product, but go-to-market
Yeah.
strategy, our pricing strategy, our help strategy. It's everything. So that's amazing. And if you love that, love innovation, you love running super, super hard, and like, this kind of culture in Databricks is a great place for those kind of entrepreneurs people. So
So it's really it's hiring. It's just like making sure you get this archetype of person, and in your culture, then that is reinforced and sounds like it's empowered and unlocked.
yeah, the culture is like, let's debate. We used to call it debate
Mm.
culture, but we would debate these decisions. If it's a two-way door, like, let's get the data, make a decision, move fast. If it's a one-way door, we want to try to make the best decision possible, not analysis paralysis, but, you know, it doesn't necessarily, you know, the reason, well, that's how it's always been done is not a reason we do things at Databricks. And so, like, being able to stand up and defend, like, your ideas and, or, why we should do it differently. Again, we're always looking at what can we improve? What can we do better? What's our blocker to the next step of growth? And so those ideas come from everywhere, right? From
Mhm.
all rank here at Databricks. So that's a big.
And how do you reinforce it? Like, how do you make sure that in the culture, people are thinking from first principles, that debate, uh, and Socratic method is there? Like, are there things specifically you have put in place to ensure that it thrives and stays?
A lot of that's been Ali and the founders. Like, they sit down,
Mm.
we're very purposeful and thoughtful about the culture principles. And then we've evolved those over time. And we talk a lot about them too. So in our leader uh, training, in our onboarding,
Mhm.
talk about the culture principles, where they came from, by the report to Databricks and our culture. And so the match of the people we hire with those culture principles is one of the most important things we look at. If you're going to be great fit at Databricks, and are you going to get promoted and all those things? And so Ali and Arslan and the rest of the founders talk a lot about first principles, uh, what sales law is, lots of decisions, and again, that reinforcement. Never go into a meeting thinking, "Hey, this is going to be a short meeting. Have the answers, and here's the data." Like, it's going to be a discussion. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that's top round, and it's been adopted by the whole company. And if you love that kind of stuff, then you love Databricks. And if it's not a great fit, you might be also met someplace else. It just might not be a great fit for you at Databricks, right?
Yeah.
So
And so do you have a culture and values interview stage, or like how do you operationalize that in the hiring process?
yeah, how about how we interview? Like, when you fill out a scorecard, like, how do they do? It's not just, hey, walk me through your experience, whatever. It's like, give me an example of how you use first principles. Um, we talk about bias for action, and we talk about keep the bar and hiring. So how do you hire? How do you make sure you continually get the best of the best, and continue to upgrade your team? Like, those are core to how we interview and screen candidates, and how we rank candidates as a good fit for Databricks for sure. So,
Yeah,
and
making sure
again,
the
our
values are
promotion too, like in our personal promotions, we're constantly talking about how do they fit with the culture principles of the company.
nice. We've just recently weaved this in a more systematic way where every hiring scorecard has our values assessment. We've weaved questions in that specifically try to tackle those areas. So glad to hear that
I
you're
think you have to, if you want a cohesive, not cohesive, but if you want culture to be a competitive differentiator, you need to interview for that. But step one is sit down as a management team or as a founding team and be super thoughtful about what kind of culture you want to develop. And if you get that right, then you can get the right people, and then that's going to build upon itself. You have to be really thoughtful in it. Hats off to, a lot of founders and Ali and the exec team on, I think they did a great job with that. So
Makes sense. And cohesive is a fair word. I mean, I think you obviously want to avoid an echo chamber and just sort of a monoculture, but you need a level of cohesion to make sure that your collective energy is roughly pointing in the same direction.
totally.
It is. I know, we want to have a variety of opinions, but at some point there's common things that we just all have to agree to, or this thing's not going to work. Like, because they're too foundational to how we operate.
Yeah, totally.
What was the hardest transition for you to personally make? Like, as you went from 10, 100, 500, was there a particular stage where you had to change the most or adapt yourself that's really memorable?
So I think the scaling motion, like I would say $1 billion plus, for me, like I love Databricks. I feel like I helped build it, and I was involved in pretty much every big strategic decision of the company, pretty intimately involved.
Mhm.
As we get bigger and bigger, a couple shifts happen, right? Like you're not going to be able to be involved in all the decisions, right?
Mhm.
The really, one-way tour, what do we do with this partnership, these kind of things, certainly. But there's lots of decisions going on that are really important that, you just got to trust your teammates on. The second is scale. Like you have to be super thoughtful on about repeatability, efficiency. Whereas earlier stage, again, you're just driving top line growth. And so as you start to get scale bigger and bigger, you have to be pretty thoughtful about, repeatable processes, making sure everybody's doing, how we do sales, how we do positioning,
Yeah.
how we position a product, certifications, everything's really about scale and repeatability. And so, that's been fun. Actually, I think in some ways it's easier than the earlier stages, but it's different. It's a different set of things that you have to do. Again, those 4 stages, there's, differences in product strategy and team that you need for each one of those 4. So,
Yeah. And as you get Databricks type of velocity and critical mass, getting to just go hire literally the best people in the world for a craft. Very few, everybody says, oh, we want to hire the best people, but there's not enough best people to go around for all these companies. And being in your position, you can actually do that, which I think is a very unique advantage.
yeah, for sure. The longer we eat that, the faster we'll grow, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
the next Databricks doesn't come along. So,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, it seems like you guys have predicted where the market is going in a few interesting ways that the advantage will sustain itself for at least a couple more years.
I think this will be a $1 trillion company. I mean, I hope it's the biggest tech IPO of all time. You know what I mean? But
You're definitely on
I
track
think
for
the
that.
vision and the strategy of this market, I mean, it helps too that data, I think, will be one of, the biggest generational shift in technology in our lifetimes. But I think Databricks is the innovation leader there. But I mean, we have the right foundation, and again, it's how do you continue to evolve and make sure you remove the blockage for that next stage of growth. So,
Yeah, you have the right to win. That's for sure.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Well, we expect to win. So,
yeah. Would you? This is an off-topic question, but would you say that execution is the only real moat? Like some people talk about, network effects and, product is a moat, but over time, especially the way that these markets are changing so quickly, is ultimately like the way that Databricks becomes a $1 trillion company as opposed to a, couple $100 million company? Is it just execution as the durable long-term advantage?
Well, yes, I would say yes, but I mean, it's product execution. It's, GTM execution, right? I think any of these advantages that you mentioned, like a product advantage or a network effect, unless you have like monopoly in a particular market, uh, people are going to catch up. Like,
Yeah.
look in history, right? It's like, uh, every single, even operating system, new people come in, like, clouds, there's three players, cloud, like that used to be before massive hardware folks, IBM, HP, right? Like every single wave of technology has replaced the previous one pretty much. I mean, even companies like Microsoft have to reinvent themselves to get to that next stage of growth, right? And so I think companies in our stage are even more vulnerable. So, our ability to execute, continue to evolve and reinvent ourselves will make it so we continue to grow. Otherwise, people or companies hit a ceiling because they stayed with the same thing for too long, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right, we'll do a quick lightning round and then we got to wrap.
awesome.
What do you think separates a good CRO versus a great, like a truly exceptional one?
Hiring culture. How do you hire the best, motivate them, inspire them? And the people you can hire today might be the best people you can hire tomorrow. We're continually look at that and try to build some of both. So
I should have expected that answer. I'm getting that theme, which I love. What did you learn much later in your leadership career that you wished you had known in the early stages of your executive career?
Oh, that's a tough one, actually. I think a lot of this stuff, it's just as I've gotten bigger and bigger org, you can't personally make sure you can't know everybody, can't make sure everyone's successful. Whereas when you're smaller, you can kind of reach down and help them win a deal or pick them up. And so those things on how you hire your leaders and how you train them to do those things to develop the same type of culture and positive I call it coaching. That becomes incredibly important. And I've really tried to lean in a lot on the leaders and the leadership training and all those kind of things to make sure as you continue to scale, like that translates all the way down to AE and they feel connected to me and to the organization. So
cool. Last question. What's the best thing you've read in the last 12 months?
Oh, I think business book or first
Whatever.
Oh,
Whatever.
all right. I read Kobe Bryant's book. I loved it.
Nice.
Marketing. I read Think Bigger. Think Bigger's a great marketing book. I think it's my number one marketing book.
It's been on my list forever. I gotta read it.
Yeah, it's really good. I read a lot on like sports biographies. Like I love Walter Payton's biography is probably one of my favorites. If you haven't read it, definitely pick it up. He's amazing human, not just a football player. But I love sports theologies for life. Certainly for sales, but for life, around teamwork and humility and failure, all those kind of things. So I take a lot of that to how I lead and culture here, and so I love those books around people that have done just absolutely exceptional things. So
very cool. Well, we're over time, so we'll wrap here. But Ron, this was awesome. I knew it was going to be good, and there was like 6 different topics that I could have spent an hour with you on that came up today. So I really appreciate you taking the time and doing this.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks, Kyle. Really appreciate it, and awesome job. So really enjoyed it, and it was fun. I think I could talk to you for another hour. So
yeah. Well, next time we'll do a part 2. Thank you for listening to the Revenue Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, and you can find a link in the show notes. And be sure to leave a 5-star review, share it with your network, and please join me next Wednesday for another great conversation.